A person came in from Mexico illegally and killed her. We need the wall. We need our immigration laws changed.
In July 2018, 20-year-old Mollie Tibbetts vanished during an evening jog in Brooklyn, Iowa, which left her family and law enforcement desperate for answers. Investigators followed numerous leads, which included a false sighting at a truck stop, but each one led to dead ends, and the case seemed to stall. Weeks passed without a breakthrough until important surveillance footage was found. This crucial evidence revived the investigation and directed it onto a new path. So, how did this footage reveal the mystery behind her disappearance? Let's dive into the case.
After she went missing, it's been 2 weeks since she was found, and neighbors in this area say they never expected this to be in their backyards.
All along, I wanted her to be found alive. I didn't want her to be dumped in a cornfield.
Mollie Tibbetts was born on May 8, 1998, in San Francisco, California. Her parents, named Rob Tibbetts and Laura Calderwood, originally considered naming her Grace, but when they saw her for the first time, they decided the name didn't quite fit. She was someone who captured the hearts of everyone around her with her warmth, intelligence, and passion. After her parents separated, Mollie moved to Iowa with her mother and brothers when she was in the 2nd grade. It was in Brooklyn, Iowa, where Mollie would grow up and make her mark. She graduated from Brooklyn Guernsey Malcolm High School, where she excelled in several areas, including speech, theater, writing, and cross-country running. According to those who knew her, while she enjoyed participating in the choir, it was in speech and writing where Mollie truly found her strength.
Because you're not good at a sport or whatever it is that you think you need to be good at because it's what everyone does, you don't have to be like them. You have to go find your own thing because your talent is God's gift to you, and what you do with it is your gift back to God. Thank you, everyone.
By 2018, Mollie was a college student at the University of Iowa, where she was studying psychology. Despite her busy academic schedule, Mollie kept up her love for running and often jogged in the evenings as part of her routine. On July 18, 2018, Mollie left Dalton Jack's house, who was her boyfriend of 3 years, in Brooklyn for an evening jog. She had been staying at Dalton's home while he was working in Dubuque, Iowa, which is a city over 130 miles away. Mollie was last seen around 7:30 p.m. Central Daylight Time and starting her jog, but she did not return home that evening as expected. The next morning, when Mollie missed work and was unreachable, her family immediately became alarmed. They reported her missing, which initiated a search that would capture national attention. Authorities quickly learned that Mollie's last confirmed communication had been with Dalton, and shortly before she left for her run. While Dalton was away in Dubuque, he later told investigators that he had received a Snapchat message from Mollie later that evening. The message appeared to show her indoors, but it didn't offer any concrete details or indicate where she was at that moment. This message became an important part of the timeline surrounding her disappearance. As the days passed, the search for Mollie intensified.
Seeing that they were posting about getting help for the search, and I seen some other posts on the Powesheik County Sheriff, and I posted something on there of what I seen, and then I messaged the Powesheik here.
Law enforcement scoured the area where Mollie had been known to run and followed up on any leads that might explain her disappearance. Despite their efforts, Mollie's whereabouts remained a mystery, and the case soon became one of the most talked about missing person investigations in the country. Mollie Tibbetts' friends, family, and community members were devastated. Her parents described her as a loving person, someone who could always be counted on to offer support or lift someone's spirits. They remembered her as a young woman full of promise, with her own unique charm and a talent for bringing people together.
For all the efforts of law enforcement, and our friends in searching for Mollie. It is our greatest hope that if someone has her, that they would just release her and claim that money that we have raised for her freedom.
In the days and weeks following Mollie Tibbetts' disappearance on July 18th, law enforcement agencies across multiple states launched an extensive investigation. The search involved hundreds of leads, but as time passed, the case remained unsolved. Authorities received over 2,300 tips and conducted more than 500 interviews, but none of these efforts yielded significant new information about Mollie's whereabouts. By the weekend, missing persons posters filled nearly every storefront in downtown Brooklyn. The investigation initially included some high-profile yet ultimately false leads. For instance, there was an unconfirmed sighting of Mollie at a truck stop in Kearney, Missouri, which was later confirmed to be a false lead. Despite the lack of tangible progress, the investigation continued to expand across state lines as police pursued every potential lead. They were determined to find the missing young woman.
We're all searching for you. You know, I can see it in your parents' faces. Everyone just wants you home.
Now, police are still searching for Mollie and looking into any leads that are provided by the public. They're urging you to say something if you see something.
One critical piece of evidence was Mollie's Fitbit, which was an activity tracker that she always wore. Authorities hoped that by analyzing the data from the device, they could find clues about her movements on the night of her disappearance. Unfortunately, the Fitbit data did not provide the breakthrough they had hoped for. As the investigation stretched into weeks without any major breakthroughs, the focus began to narrow. Police shifted their attention to specific locations in and around Brooklyn, Iowa, which was the town where Mollie lived and where she had been staying at her boyfriend's home. Among the areas they concentrated on were Dalton Jack's home, which included a nearby truck stop, a car wash, and 2 local farms. Despite these targeted efforts, the search continued without success. The case captured widespread media attention, and the community rallied around Mollie's family, which offered support and hope. To help incentivize information, a monetary reward was offered for any information that could lead to a resolution. As the weeks passed, the reward fund grew to over $366,000, which surpassed the previous record for Crime Stoppers in the area. The reward was meant to encourage those with information to come forward, but as the search for Mollie continued without results, Crime Stoppers clarified that the reward money would only be given if Mollie was safely returned. If not, the funds would either be returned to the donors or distributed to Crime Stoppers and Mollie's family.
You might know that she's being held by somebody, but would never say anything, because if they said something, they may think that reciprocity or their life might be in danger. We can guarantee that whoever gives this information up, their identity will be protected.
Despite the intense search efforts, it wasn't until August 21st, 2018, over a month after Mollie's disappearance, that the investigation took a devastating turn. Police announced that a body had been found in Poweshiek County, which is the same county where Brooklyn is located. 2 days later, on August 23rd, an autopsy confirmed the worst. It was indeed the body of Mollie Tibbetts, and her death was ruled a homicide. The autopsy performed by the Iowa State Medical Examiner revealed that Mollie had died from multiple sharp force injuries. This confirmed the nature of the crime as a homicide, though many questions about the circumstances surrounding her death remained unanswered at that time. The investigation was no longer about finding Mollie, but understanding what had led to her tragic death and bringing justice to a young woman whose life had been cut far too short. As the investigation moved forward, authorities would piece together the details of Mollie's final moments, which included the role that Cristhian Bahena Rivera played in her death. His arrest and the legal proceedings that followed brought more attention to the case and shed light on the tragic events of Mollie's final days.
Mollie Tibbetts' murder trial. A jury found farm laborer Cristhian Bahena Rivera guilty of first-degree murder of the University of Iowa student. She vanished back in 2018.
During a news conference on August 21, 2018, law enforcement officials revealed that video recordings from local security cameras played a crucial role in solving the case. These recordings provided valuable evidence which captured a jogger and believed to be Mollie Tibbetts who was running through the area. In addition, a black Chevrolet Malibu was seen repeatedly passing through the same location, which caught the attention of investigators. In his testimony during the trial, Agent Derek Reeson from the Iowa Division of Criminal Investigation explained that the footage was a significant lead in the case. The video showed the Malibu driving slowly down the street about 20 to 30 seconds after the jogger was first seen, which suggested a potential connection. A few minutes later, the same car passed through again, and followed by another appearance just a minute after that.
Appeals court has denied a new trial for the man convicted of killing Mollie Tibbetts. Cristhian Bahena Rivera is currently serving life in prison for the murder. Tibbetts vanished in 2018 while out on a run. Her body was later found in a Poweshiek County cornfield.
The most influential moment came about 20 minutes later, when the Malibu was captured on camera once more at around 8:08 p.m. on July 18, 2018. Agent Reeson noted that, in his opinion, and during this final pass, the vehicle appeared to be driving faster than before, which suggested a possible change in behavior or urgency. This video evidence was pivotal in linking the car to Cristhian Bahena Rivera, which ultimately led to his identification as the prime suspect and his subsequent arrest. Cristhian Bahena Rivera was the man responsible for Mollie Tibbetts' death. He was 24 years old at the time of the crime. Rivera lived and worked in the rural area of Poweshiek County, Iowa, where Mollie disappeared. Originally from El Guayabillo, which is a small town in the state of Guerrero, Mexico, Rivera had arrived in the United States illegally at the age of 17. After arriving, he settled in the area and spent several years working on various farms in the region. Rivera had worked at Yarrabee Farms near Brooklyn since August 2014. At the time of the murder, he was employed there as a farm worker. He had been using the alias John Budd to receive his paychecks and to self-identify. This name was not his legal identity, and investigators later discovered that Rivera had been living and working in the U.S. under false pretenses.
This is an obviously sad ending to this search for Mollie Tibbetts. As you mentioned, investigators say they have charged an undocumented immigrant with first-degree murder, and they say he offered some pretty chilling details about what happened the night Mollie disappeared.
The investigation into Mollie's disappearance took a significant turn when authorities obtained footage from a nearby surveillance camera. The vehicle's presence in the area, combined with the timeline of Mollie's last known movements, made Rivera a key person of interest. When police approached Rivera with the evidence, they interviewed him, and he did not resist. During questioning, Rivera confessed to kidnapping and killing Mollie Tibbetts. According to an affidavit filed by the Poweshiek County Sheriff's Office, Rivera admitted to the crime and led investigators to an isolated location within a cornfield where he had dumped her body.
Suspect worked at a well-known Iowa dairy farm for 4 years. The owners calling him a good worker. Also say they were stunned to hear he allegedly led police to Mollie Tibbetts' body in a cornfield.
This location was hidden in a remote area of farmland, and, despite extensive searches in the area, it had remained undiscovered for weeks. Rivera's confession and his willingness to lead investigators to Mollie's body were crucial in bringing closure to the investigation.
Grabbed a hold of her phone and said, "You need to leave me alone, I'm going to call the police." And then she took off running. He in turn chased her down. And then he tells us that at some point in time he blacks out.
The motive behind Mollie Tibbetts' death remains unclear, but it appears to be a senseless act. Cristhian Rivera said he saw Mollie jogging and became frustrated when she threatened to call the police. In his confession, Rivera claimed he panicked, abducted her, and later killed her, and left her body in a cornfield. There was no personal connection between Rivera and Mollie, which suggested the motive was driven by a sudden, irrational decision rather than a planned attack.
Mollie Tibbetts was in the trunk of your car, isn't that right?
Yes.
And you did not tell them what really happened, isn't that right?
Correct.
Rivera's confession detailed the horrific events that were revealed on the evening of July 18th, when Mollie went for her jog. Authorities pieced together that after spotting her while she was running, Rivera had abducted her and then killed her. His reasons for the crime are unclear, but the circumstances suggest it was a violent and senseless act.
Did you tell law enforcement the truth that night?
Not all.
Mollie Tibbetts was in the trunk of your car, isn't that right?
Yes.
Cristhian Bahena Rivera's arrest and confession brought a grim resolution to the case, but it also raised significant questions about his time in the United States and his use of a false identity.
What is that?
Tenía pensado limpiar mi carro porque el siguiente día iba a salir a comer con una muchacha.
I had planned to clean out my car because the next day I was planning on going out with a girl.
Rivera, who had been living in the U.S. illegally, was charged with first-degree murder in connection with the death of Mollie Tibbetts. On May 28, 2021, a jury found him guilty of first-degree murder. Just a few months later, on August 30th, 2021, Rivera was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole.
Describe which man had which weapon.
El más grande miré que tenía un arma y el otro tenía una navaja.
The bigger one, I could see that he had a gun, and the smaller one, I could see that he had a knife.
Rivera's immigration status became a politically charged issue during the investigation and trial.
It is the order and judgment of this court, acting pursuant to the provisions of Section 902 of the Code of Iowa, that the defendant be and he is hereby committed to the custody of Iowa Department of Corrections for a lifetime sentence with no eligibility for parole.
Immigration authorities, including the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, USCIS, and U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, IC, revealed that Rivera had been in the United States illegally. This sparked a debate, particularly among political figures. The Trump administration and some Republicans.
A person came in from Mexico illegally and killed her. We need the wall. We need our immigration laws changed.
Including Iowa Governor Kim Reynolds, argued that the murder might have been prevented if the U.S. had more restrictive immigration policies. This debate over immigration laws and safety in small communities became a focal point as Rivera's criminal history and unauthorized presence in the country were brought to light during the investigation.
You are allowed to take notes as I read the instructions to you, as you have been allowed to do throughout the trial. However, I want you to be aware you will have the original, and each of you will have a copy of these instructions with you during deliberation.
While Rivera's conviction brought some closure to the case, it also highlighted broader issues related to immigration, law enforcement, and the safety of communities. His actions and the ensuing discussions around his immigration status made the case not only a personal tragedy for Mollie's family, but also a national point of contention about immigration policies and their potential impact on public safety.
Not have the death penalty. If Rivera is convicted of first-degree murder, he'll be in prison for life without parole. Now, as this news unfolds, Sammy, a lot of people are having a hard time coping with the loss.
That's right, Dan.